All right. So we got some users here. We got some app creators here. We've got Asgarth is around here, also co-creator of Peak D and Peak Monsters. There's my sister over here, Sarah. All right. I want, like you said, we're going to do an educational sort of thing. There's been some great presentations about applications, some more technical things. This is kind of more for everyone, I suppose, and I hope it's for everyone. I'm going to educate a little bit because we're all kind of involved in a lot of applications. We can help each other grow. So we're going to talk about three things: teamwork, expectations, and listening. So the first one, teamwork. I don't know if you know this, but we're Peak D presently is a pretty small team. Like I said, Asgarth is here and me. We also consider kind of all of the users of Peak D part of the team because we're a small team. We can't do everything. So we help enable you guys in to be able to help us. So if you see little issues here, little problems, or like, spelling mistakes, for example, you'll be able to go over to Discord and help suggest. So that's the same sort of thing with a lot of different applications. Sometimes rely on the help because they're small and they don't have a large uh, group of different people checking here and there. But what you need to do is kind of react fast and give them a benefit to helping you out. So we hope that we're doing a decent job of that and helping establish sort of culture. Um, and how do you know, I guess, if the culture is working? Um, One of the things you can do to, well, I'm not saying that you should throw in a spelling mistake on purpose, but I'm also not saying that you shouldn't. It actually could be a good little exercise to see if people are paying attention, whether they even care about your application enough to say, hey, you notice there's a problem over here. And then you'll see if they're interacting with you, if they care enough about your platform, or you'll see if they're using it as a way to like trash you, like, oh, I can't believe you had this little issue in there. So you'll see if that culture is working. Do they care about you? Do they feel like they're part of your project, or they feel like oh, can't believe you had this problem. But that leads to the second thing, establishing some expectations. Do they know that it's a small team? A lot of you out there creating applications, maybe you have a small team. There are bigger expectations. You get bigger. Like they feel like you have more workers, they have more money. And so then maybe you get less sympathy for little small errors and stuff like that. So we know that Splinterlands sees that as they're one of the bigger applications in our platform with more workers and more money. And so, but they can still integrate and help people feel like they're part of the team. They've done this recently by giving people a voice to help give different ideas, which we're going to talk a little bit more about ideas. But first, it's kind of the internal math. Even if you are a small team or if you are a user jumping into an application that is presently small, maybe there's two options and one's bigger than the other. People do a sort of internal math. They say, hey, this group over here, even though they're smaller, there's a little bit less things going on here. They tend to release quickly, they communicate more, and they make really good choices. So that's a big one. And so they'll kind of be a part of that team, jump in and use your application. It's this form of internal math that we all tend to do. But let's um, talk about listening to users. And there's multiple ways of doing that. Eavesdropping way where you're just kind of like hearing them talk back and forth amongst each other, either on comments or on like Discord servers or just different places. And there's also reading reviews. We have a tendency to read reviews going in this kind of egotistical manner, like, do they like me? Do they not like me? Uh, I would suggest that we read it and see what is it they like about the application so that we can make better changes to it, so that we can understand if they are understanding um, what's going on. And then also watch those like YouTube videos or educational posts, and you see what your users are talking about to help explain your application to other people. And that's really a great way to see like, oh, I didn't realize this wasn't intuitive. And intuitive is a big word. When we started Steam, what it was previously Steam Peak, we wanted it to be all about intuitive design. Oh, is it perfectly intuitive yet? Yeah, not 100%. But when someone is having to spend a lot of time educating someone, you know you can do a little bit better to make it intuitive. Intuitive means they just get it. No one has to watch a video, no one has to read a post, they just understand. And I want to do is kind of focus on the next two things, the getting ideas and one-on-one time. So let's skip right on over. Why do we welcome ideas from users? I hope that PeakD and Peak Monsters does a good job at that. But why should all applications do it? I think there's three different reasons besides getting good ideas. It's helping users buy in, not just to the to the idea of being part of the application and to work with you and to help like solve issues and like bring things up. Oh, you got a spelling mistake over there. So you're helping them feel part of the team. And then they're also there to help validate your ideas. So we've got dozens, if not actually hundreds of ideas from the beginning, and we've got a long list of ideas. And I feel like a lot of applications are, and even myself sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I already thought of that. I already thought of that because it's kind of an ego thing. Like, yeah, we already got that figured out. But as you allow people and give them a place to express ideas, listening to even the ones that you already had is great because you're validating the ideas that you have. We are at Peak D, for example, and Peak Monsters, we kind of have this, we don't have, we allow people to share ideas because we can change things around. Like if a lot of people are really interested in one thing, okay, let's move around the priority list. So it also has that impact. But it also is you allow users to think of ideas and you enable them and encourage them.
Uh-oh. 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 Yeah, I just got a phone call from, what's his name? Scotty. He said, hey, Roland. Yeah, I said, yeah, Scotty, what's up, man? I'm in the middle of a HiveFest presentation. Is it important? You know what he said? Yeah, I got to beam up a person. His name is Jarvie. So then, Scotty, apparently, I said, wait 5 minutes because Jarvie is finishing his presentation. And then, you know, just push the button and he beamed up Jarvie. Maybe that's the thing. Or you have this thing called batteries, lithium ion, also happens sometimes. You have this lithium ion thingy, and then, yeah, not enough battery power. Please give me an emoji if you can hear me. I can hear myself on the live stream, so it works. So why welcome ideas from you? Yeah, obviously, it helps you make users grow. I mean, the best thing, if you want to launch a product, is actually to, you know, build a little concept and then launch it. Ask your users what they think about it, and then say, hey, what are you missing? And then build that instead of starting out and building a product and then thinking, oh, maybe this is also a cool thing to do. That's what many of the developers do. And what I did in my experience when I was building products, I still am, although not so many this year, is that I started out doing it. And because you're a developer, you have the tools, right? You have the tool set and you can build anything that you can imagine. And then, well, what most of the time happen if you're not limiting yourself, you just keep on building and building and building and building and never go out there and promote your product. So, or actually get some users. Let's see what's on the next slide. Finn, can you check out if Jarvie, by the way, is still somewhere online? Are you Jarvie? You want to take over? You're welcome. Oh, no. You say he's online. Yeah, okay, that's okay. But, no. And Asgard is here, and Jarvie's sister was here as well. But maybe he's coming online, or otherwise we can swap over and we continue with Jarvie in a bit. And I will just invite over. Yeah, it can happen. I mean, you know, stuff happens. I'm right here. So after Jarvie, we have Deluxe. Can you come on the stage? Oh, Jarvie's back. Oh, guess who's back? Jarvie's back. Back again. With the
All right.
cutie. All right.
2-3 hours on this place, and all of a sudden during the meeting, it kicks me out, huh?
And now you can't click it, right? Can you?
I'll just let you control it. How about that, Roland?
Let's do it. Go for it.
The thing doesn't work for me. All right. Well, luckily I remember what's going on here. So, all right. And then we also have why do we allow ideas? Okay, I'm going to stand off to the stage so I can look at it here because I was looking in front of me before. But we have ideas because it says something about your oh wait, go to the previous one. Why welcome ideas so that validate them to get your users to buy in and help them to grow. Okay, yeah, cool. This is where we're at. So now go to the next slide. And this is why you don't beat down any bad ideas. I know, like, quote unquote bad ideas, right? Because one of the things that even allowing people to come in and share like their kind of wild and crazy ideas is it helps you understand where they're coming from. Maybe they just have no clue how your product works or how it technically stuff works. So when they're sharing that, you're like, oh, I get it. We need to have a more intuitive thing here, what they're talking about, so that they understand what's going on. And the same thing if they know what's going on, but sometimes there's this underlying issue that they have, and they're not really good at communicating that underlying issue sometimes. You kind of have to crack open what they're talking about. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at doing this. Sometimes there's also language barriers that happen as well. It tells a lot about your product when they're sharing these ideas as well. But also, even the bad ideas or the good ideas, it's all part of the brainstorming process. One idea leads to another, or one of your ideas merges with one of my ideas, and I'm like, oh, it's actually interesting. I can take your underlying issue, and if I adapt my idea, then we can solve your thing as well. All right, next slide. Well, here, I mean, it's not necessarily about Peak D, this presentation. We're going to have a little bit of a sneak peek. Earlier this summer, I learned how to use what a lot of UX and designers are using these days, at least professional ones that I know. They're talking about Figma. So if you're interested in this concept, you can create these really cool interactive mockups on Figma. I'm going to show you what I did. Keep in mind, this is my disclaimer. I am not a designer. These are basically just like pictures. It's just a really good interface for creating these mockups. And what I did was I talked to dozens of people, spent like an hour at a time with all of them. And what you do is you show them these mockups, and then you just shut up. This is the one-on-one part of listening. You just listen to them, hear what they have to say. All right, so here I took a bunch of these ideas, these problems, underlying, and I thought, well, how could we change things? And then I presented it to people, and I said, okay, before you click on something, and a few of these things are clickable, tell me what it's going to do. And then when you click on it, tell me what it did, and tell me if you understand it. And I just kind of kept quiet. Some of you in the audience did this with me earlier this year. So just a bunch of random things. That's not necessarily what the project is about, or this presentation is about. But so I watched, and the first thing that last person that I did this interview with, the first thing they did was they clicked on the money thing, and they're like, "Oh, that looks different," because they were they were familiar with Peak D in this case, because we also interviewed quite a few people that had never even heard of it, never used it. Some friends of mine that had never been on Peak D, and so they're like, "Oh, I get it," and they look through it. Oh, the top photos are here, but there's more of them, and some of them had questions like, "What's this thing up above?" And well, in this case, the mock-up didn't have to hover over it. But I guess some of you would probably be recognized like, oh, there's Hive versus Leo. It's the kind of different reward pools. And if we were to integrate them so that you could see different reward pools, what would it look like? And would people intuitively understand this thing? All right, next slide. And then I watched what they clicked on next. They're like, oh, okay, before she even clicked on it, she knew that that was going to be a share button. Okay, good. I'm just doing the mental math. I'm like, okay, they understand what's going on here. And they look through them and they think, all right, what in that list made sense and what didn't make sense? And there was one thing on that list that was like kind of shaky ground. Now, do we add it in? Do we not add it in? How do we make it more intuitive? And then we go to another thing that I'm kind of very partial to, this this tip section. Because, and this is my little moment of soapbox, because we have an issue on Hive. We have a centralization issue on Hive. And that centralization issue is that we have so much dependency on rewarding people with the Hive reward pool. It's everyone is so caught up in that one reward pool. Now it's become a little less decentralized because there's multiple forms of reward pools. There's many other ways to reward people. If we love this concept of decentralization, we can love these other ways as well. And one other fun thing about tips is that it's unlimited, and the Hive reward pool it's quite limited. There's a daily limit to the amount of Hive that can be given out. So I'm thinking, well, how do we make this a better experience for people? So as they clicked on tip, and we just said tip for now, maybe it'll end up being a present box still. And it was hard for them at first, and this has gone through many iterations. As you could see, they didn't care about the fact that I didn't design it perfectly, and quick tip is right up at the top and all that stuff. That's for when we, release it as a beta sort of thing, then it can be nicely polished and all that sort of stuff. But did they understand it? With the quick tip up there, did they understand that they could manage the different boxes to be whatever tip and whatever token they wanted it to be? So they could go in and go click, click, and they were, they hit the tip button and they hit the quick button, and boom, it's done. So we'll see a little bit better when it goes to a live thing, and then I'll do that whole process again where I'll spend hours on end talking to people and seeing, well, just click around and tell me what you're doing. I don't want to propagandize you and tell you why it's here. Tell me if you think it's cool. And that's just kind of the plug for a moment. Jump on over to our Discord. Let me know that when we get to that next step that you want to be involved in that. I'm going to be doing probably the majority of people that have never used PeakD before, because I know that there's tens of thousands, even if maybe hundreds of thousands of Hive users, active Hive users. But in the future, the majority of people that we want to make happy are all the people that aren't even here yet. There's going to be millions of them here. We want them to understand it. So the majority of my time will be spent working with those people. All right, next slide. Almost done, coming to the finish line. And then we looked at I saw that they went up to the user menu on the top right. With Figma, again, you can do some fun things. It's just the more and more time that you spend. You can maybe make this little green lightning have a hover, so that because some of the people were saying, well, what is that green one? I understand everything else on that. I said, well, yeah, I guess it's hard to explain the concept of resource credits here, but maybe we'll have it so it has it hovered. So I did interlude for a moment, a little bit. So, all right, next slide. And then we got to this, what we're trying really hard is helping people to navigate to all different sorts of aspects of PeakD, because on Hive we've got communities, we've got topics, we've got users, we've got curators, we've got badges, we've got bookmarks, and and we're testing out different icons to see if they work. And some of these don't work, which we've already known. We're working on hiring, or we've hired someone to help some different icons and stuff like that that are very intuitive. One example of what you can do on Figma and do when you're with a one-on-one is they came in here and they said, oh, favorite topics. I get it. That's like the most favorite topics on all of Hive. And I was like, no, that's not what that means. I said that to myself. And so they're like, then they looked, oh, there's popular topics. So what's the difference here? And I was like, wait, give me a moment. And live while on Figma, I was able to go over here, go back, Roland, for one. And I was able to just put in like the word my favorite. And then they looked at it and they're like, I get it. Makes sense. Words, cliche, words matter. Words will help things be intuitive and stuff like that. So, all right, the next one, similar example. This whole section, I was working on it for months, and just recently, when I was talking to her, I realized it wasn't perfectly intuitive, and so I had a moment where I was like, I get it. I know what we can do, and so I changed some words, and then I asked them, does it make more sense? And they were like, yep, it does. So we'll continue to do this sort of thing. This one-on-one time with your users is really helpful. Actually, with all the applications out there, I love doing this sort of thing. If you ever want this, I'll jump in. We'll do a screen share. I'll go through, especially ones that I've never used before. That's awesome, because then I have my first user experience. But then you need to go to people that aren't maybe as technically inclined like me. But all right, so just as a recap, and there won't be any time for questions after this, I'm sure of it. But I'll be out there, perhaps out in the lobby, and we can chat, not interrupting people here. You want to create a culture of interaction, and enable your users to interact with you. And we hope that we're doing that with our users. I'm not perfect at it, and I hope to get better at it. And then welcome ideas for them for a myriad of reasons, and then put yourself in their shoes. And a lot of that has to do with reading what they say. So go out there, your users, go out there and write stuff about PeakD. We'll look at it, we'll vote it up, and more importantly, it will, in some format or another, impact what's going on PeakD and Peak Monsters. Anyways, that's my presentation.